Okay.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is October 15th. This is the City of Durango City Council regular meeting. The time is 5:31 p.m. Item 1, call to order and roll call.
Counselor Woodruff,
Here.
Mayor Beal,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie. Here. Counselor Youssef. And Counselor Bosman's.
Present.
Next item, 1.1, the reading of the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. This is a call to honor and respect Indigenous sovereignty and self-determination. As residents and visitors of Durango, we are called upon to educate ourselves about the history and cultural heritage of the land we inhabit. The city of Durango is situated on the ancestral homelands and territories of the Nuchu, Ute, Jicarilla, Apache, Pueblos of New Mexico, Hopi, Sinom, Hopi, and Dene, Navajo nations. The original stewards of this land were forcibly removed and exposed to countless atrocities by the United States government, including repeatedly broken treaties, forced assimilation, the tragic legacy of Indian boarding schools, and the loss of ancestral homelands. We recognize lasting generational trauma exists within Native communities today. We affirm the continuing importance of ancestral sites to descendant communities as integral to the living cultural landscape. This acknowledgement only becomes meaningful when combined with accountable relationships and informed actions. May this serve as a step towards inclusion and reconciliation. Excellent. Item 2, introduction of the translator.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Diego Ponce here with my colleague Liz Torres. We're here with the CLC. We'll keep providing simultaneous interpretation here on Zoom. Once I finish giving the instructions in both languages, you'll see that globe icon as usual that's going to appear in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer screen, and it'll say interpretation. Select the globe icon and please choose your preferred language. And if you're joining the meeting today on your cell phone or tablet, please look for the More button or the 3 dots button to select your preferred language that way. If you're not fully bilingual, as always, we strongly encourage you to select your preferred language so you can listen to the interpretation in case anyone speaks in the opposite language. As always, just please pay attention to the speed in which you're speaking. As long as you're speaking at a conversational pace like this, you're going at a great speed for us, but please make sure you don't pick up your reading speed. Thank you so much for that. Buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Yo soy Diego Pons. Estoy aquí con mi colega Liz Torres de parte del CLC. Vamos a continuar hoy practicando la justicia del lenguaje y utilizando la interpretación simultánea aquí en Zoom en inglés y en español. Cuando terminemos de dar esas instrucciones, se activa la interpretación y en ese momento va a aparecer el icono del globo de la Tierra que va a decir interpretación ahí abajo en la derecha de su pantalla. Por favor, asegúrese de elegir ese icono globo de la Tierra y por favor seleccione su idioma preferido. Y si hoy usted está asistiendo a la reunión en su celular o en su tableta, busque por favor la opción que dice More, M-O-R-E, que quiere decir más en inglés, o tal vez un botón de 3 puntos ahí en la esquina de su pantalla, lo cual le permitirá a usted elegir su idioma preferido de esa otra manera. Así que si usted no es completamente bilingüe, le vamos a aconsejar que elija su idioma preferido para que pueda utilizar la interpretación cuando alguien está hablando en el otro idioma. Muchas gracias.
Great. Moving on, item 3, opening remarks by mayor and council. Does anyone have any opening remarks? Okay. Next up, presentations, proclamations. We're going to start with 4.1, the library bookmark contest champions. So we'll have Barb come up. Yep. And I don't know if Evan's joining you with Maria. It's great. Excellent. And then when we do we'll have everyone come up and stand here and take a photo, all the kids as they get their awards and recognitions.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll have them all at once.
Great.
Okay, so first, I don't know if this is on. I'm Barb Wynn. I'm treasurer of the Friends of the Library. Today I'm here as the bookmark chair, which is sort of totally out of my comfort zone as I'm a math science teacher. But I discovered in my teaching that there are so many ways to communicate, and art being one, and many students just blew me away with like their interpretation. So this was sort of cool. Big thanks to City Council, City of Durango for recognizing our young artists. Special thanks, of course, to Friends of the Library, the Durango Library staff, local artists, and Maria's Bookstore for our judging group, which I'm thankfully didn't, it was so hard because there were so many great applications. It was a tough task because there are so many talented artists in our community. Our Friends of the Library works closely with library staff in order to provide funding for innovative programs for all of Durango citizens, young, old, and we're also providing some of the online aspects. This is Durango Library. If you travel, you realize how amazing our resource is. I've been visiting family in other areas, and I always end up at the library and go, wow, we've got them beat, and we're a tenth of the size. So there were almost 200 entries, 196 from all over La Plata County. We even had them from New Mexico. So we know that our friends from New Farmington come up to and visit Durango's library, and age groups from pre-K to 12th grade. Durango 9R students, Mountain Middle, Animas High, Liberty School, Juniper School, homeschools, all of these kids participated. And that was the really cool thing, because last year I didn't get to see, you don't get to see their names or where they're from. And so this year, as being the coordinator, I'm like, oh my God, we hit all of these students all over. And this is combining artwork with love of reading. These posters will be displayed beginning November 12th at the library, right after our book sale of the previous weekend. And tomorrow at 4 p.m., there's a children's reception. It's not for, it's cookies and juice. It's for kids to just celebrate what they've done. Special thanks to your library staff who have done, they do so much more than I realized before I started this little project. I was like, you copy every single application so that the parents can have original artwork back, which is crazy. So without any further ado, I'm going to start this year. First year, we introduced a K-2 category because our kindergartners used to be competing with fifth graders, and 6-year-olds and 12-year-olds are sort of different. So our winner in the K-2 category is Jim Miller. We saw a lot more robots than in the past. And then you also get a water bottle and a gift certificate to Maria's. But hang out up here. Okay. Our runner-up in the elementary division was Envy Gomez Cruz.
And then don't forget to show everyone your.
The winner in the elementary 3rd through 5th division is Zoe Marusa. There you go. If you'll join them, show the board yours, and then we'll have you spin around for some pictures and you can spread out. Next to middle school, our runner-up was Andrea Salazar. There you go. And Escalante always somehow places, so you're keeping that tradition alive. And they have to have a quote from a quote about reading and in their art. And the winner was Will Haver. You don't get to keep 'em, you know, they end up at the library. Isn't that cool? In the high school division, one of our runner-up was not able to be here, but they are from Farmington, which I was like really impressed that we had a Farmington school. And then, so the winner in the high school division is Chris Sporl. Chris, are you here? There's some other stuff. There's some other stuff going on with the high school that they might have. They might be at the school board meeting instead. So with that said, photos, yes, here. I'll put it there.
Yeah, if we get you guys facing this way toward me. Sure. We're okay. All right, everybody give me a big smile on 1, 2, and 3. All right, perfect, thank you. One more second. We don't have them yet because of the district schedule. Okay.
All right, we'll go on to the next item, which is item 4.2, proclamation recognizing the Durango Botanic Gardens as the 2024 Library Community Champion. Are both of you, Bill, or just you coming up here? Okay, Bill's gonna come up and join. Say a bunch of whereases. How are you? Good to see you. And then I will give this to you and you can say some things about the botanic. Yes, exactly. Okay, proclamation recognizing the Durango Botanic Gardens as the 2024 Library Community Champion. Whereas recognizing that the success of any public library is enhanced and sustained by dedicated citizens, the Durango Public Library Advisory Board will single out certain individuals or groups for particular appreciation through its Library Community Champion Initiative. The awarding of this personal distinction honors singular achievement and commitment on behalf of the library and, in turn, the community. And whereas the Durango Botanic Gardens was nominated for the Library Community Champion Award for their role in supporting and beautifying the Durango Public Library. And whereas the Durango Botanic Gardens was founded in 2010, since that time, the Durango Botanic Gardens has designed, developed, and planted multiple gardens at the library. And whereas they continue to develop education and public places that show their very best of what Durango can do. And whereas the Durango Public Library Advisory Board wishes to recognize the Durango Botanic Gardens publicly for their dedication to the Durango Public Library, our community, and all that they did and continue to do to make the Durango Public Library and Durango a beautiful and sustainable place. Now, therefore, I, Jessica Buell, Mayor of Durango, Colorado, do hereby recognize the Durango Botanic Gardens as the 2024 Library Community Champion. Next, yours. Go ahead and say a few words.
Well, thank you on behalf of the 550 members of the all-volunteer and nonprofit Durango Botanic Gardens. Thank you, Mayor Buell, Council, for this recognition, for the proclamation. I want to thank the Library Advisory Board and the Friends of the Library for making this award to us. We really appreciate it. We really feel we have a great collaborative relationship with the city and with the library, and we think our relationship, our partnership with the library is really something magical. And I think this award recognizes that. So thank you to everybody. And at 3 o'clock on, I think it's October 30, there will be a reception where we'll receive the award, and that's sponsored by the Friends of the Library. So thank you, everyone, and visit the gardens. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, hold that thought. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, item 5, city manager updates.
No updates tonight.
Okay. Item 6, committee, board, and liaison reports. We have just information only. 6.1, the airport commission quarterly report is included in the packet. And then do you want to start us off? Counselor Woodruff, as always.
I do.
Get it.
I had the fortune of attending the Chamber of Commerce board meeting this morning. This is the new executive director, Jeff DuPont's first meeting as executive director. So he's still trying to drink from the fire hose and get all up to speed, but he's great. He's doing really well. So yeah, we're excited to have him on board. The Chamber Board is looking at a holistic approach for the downtown's next step with the utilities being discussed. So looking forward to more conversation as we get the PD City Hall rounded out. They're excited we're taking a break from the construction aspect for now, but they like the layout of the curb extensions just to kind of showcase what they could look like. So they appreciated the efforts. Programs are being worked out for 2025. So Leadership La Plata, Business After Hours, Lunch and Learn, et cetera, et cetera. And then nominations are currently open for the Chamber of Commerce Durango Rocks Awards. So if anybody knows any individuals or businesses that should be nominated, they encourage you to hop on durangobusiness.org and get them nominated. Let's see. We also attended the city budget retreat yesterday. So we got to take a peek under the hood for the 2025 budget. So that was really cool to see where we're looking at spending taxpayer money next year. We also attended the joint Board of County Commissioners and the City Council meeting on the 7th, where we talked about the joint sales tax budget and expenditures. And then Mayor Buell and I are going to attend the Community and Cultural Relations Commission interviews at the middle of next week. So we're looking forward to interviewing those candidates and getting that board and commission up and running.
Good evening. Okay, so I had 2 events that were different from the ones that Dave and I attended together. Okay, so Wednesday, August 2nd, I had office hours at the library, and I had 2 very interested residents come in, and they just wanted information about how the city functions, and one actually asked about how to run for city council. So that was good. And then last week, I went to the Colorado Housing Conference up at Keystone, Colorado. And I'm glad that I went because this conference encompasses all the cities and all the little municipalities in the state of Colorado, so you can get a really good perspective of what other communities are doing for affordable, attainable, and workforce housing. So there seemed to be a big push on the workforce housing, which I was really happy about. So I attended the workshops, and I had tried to attend the financial management workshops to see how they're funding these projects. And then, of course, the keynote speakers during your lunch and your afternoon breaks, they were just excellent, talking about sometimes they talked about national trends, but most of the time they talked about what's happening locally here in Colorado. So thank you for allowing me to go. That's all.
All right, I had a few things. I spoke at the groundbreaking ceremony for the airport Phase 1B, which was great. It's great to see a project, one that Tony's doing such a great job organizing, spearheading, but so many different entities, the county, the city, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, the board, the Airport Commission Board, everyone was there and represented. And so that was a great celebration for this next big project. At that same date and time, I also had the Alliance board meeting. So I ran out of that and jumped on the call. We did a lot of interesting things at the board meeting. We talked about some of the big things where we talked about our strategy for investing in businesses in Durango, because we do have an investment strategy, and we heard from Esoterra Cider Works, who's getting ready to launch a new winery. And so talking about potentially investing there. We also heard from the Project Run team. They just finished their first sessions about developing workforce in Durango, and they're getting ready to do a childcare segment. And so we approved the budget for that. Lots of grants coming through for that Project Run. And we had lots of success there. I also had a meeting about Colorado voting rights. It's Colorado Voting Rights Act of 2025 with Andrew Barton. He might be reaching out to council, other counselors. It's a new act that prohibits racial discrimination in voting, protecting access for eligible voters. There's some interesting ideas they're throwing around about like city council elections only being in November statewide, and just some different things that we don't necessarily follow. So there's some positives and negatives, I think, to that, but just kind of be on the lookout. City county joint meeting, like Dave talked about. And then we had the investor meeting on October 8th, which was great. I had the FAB Executive Committee meeting where they talked about pretty much strategy through April and like meetings and what they were going to be reviewing, the 2005 reauth. And some other projects. So that I think everyone's on board. I had a Durango Mesa branding call, which was super interesting, just about, you know, how community members are using Durango Mesa Park right now. How can we reach more people besides just the biking community? What next projects and next steps will look like. So that was interesting and great. Then the budget retreat. And last but not least, we had our first MIAC meeting yesterday, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. I actually had a conflicting meeting with one of my kids, so I couldn't go. But I heard it was great. They talked about roles, chairs, co-chairs, secretary, treasurer, like the functions. They got their meeting schedule dialed in. So I think our next meeting is November, and hopefully I'll be at that one. So busy couple weeks. There you go. All right. Moving along, we have public comment on action items only. So these are items that council will vote on tonight. Can I have a reading of the rules?
Public comment is encouraged on agenda items set for consideration and a vote by the council tonight. Public comments on items not set for consideration by the council come later in the meeting. Please begin your comments by stating the agenda item set for a vote you intend to speak on, your full name, and if you are a resident of the city of Durango. Make your comments directly to the council. Do not expect a response from the council or staff. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, unless modified by the council. Unused time is not transferable to other speakers. Comments must be specific to the item you identified when you began your comments. Profanity, hate speech, personally derogatory remarks, speech unrelated to the item you identified, or other speech that is disruptive to the meeting will be ruled out of order by the chair, and any remaining time will be forfeited by the speaker. Exceeding the time limit infringes on the rights of others and is out of order. Only a majority vote of the council can modify time limits. Please note, you must sign up prior to the mayor calling the item on the agenda. Signing up after the item is called will result in your name not being called to speak.
All
No
right.
one has signed up, Mayor.
Okay. Moving along, we have the consent agenda. Can I have a reading of the consent agenda?
8.1 is approval of minutes. This is approval of minutes of the City Council regular meeting on October 1st, 2024. There are no final reading of ordinances. There are several adoptions of resolutions. 8.3.1 is a discussion and possible action concerning a resolution authorizing an appropriation for the Colorado Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office Speed and Distracted Driving Grant Program that will close by May 28th, 2025. 8.3.2 is discussion and possible action concerning a resolution authorizing an appropriation for the Colorado Department of Transportation Highway Safety Office High Visibility Impaired Driving Enforcement Grant Program that will close by May 28th, 2025. 8.3.3 is discussion and possible action concerning a resolution authorizing an appropriation for the Department of Justice Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Best Partnership Grant that will close by August 31st, 2026. 8.3.4 is a resolution regarding acceptance of the annexation petitions for the West Side Triangle annexation petitions for the West Side Triangle annexation submitted by Community Development. 8.4 items are approval of other administrative items, including 8.4.1, approval of a new tavern liquor license for Main Avenue Hideaway LLC, doing business as the Black Heron Lounge at 736 Main Avenue. 8.4.2 is approval of the boards and commissions manual updates. 8.5 is request for public hearings. 8.5.1 is a request for a public hearing on the city manager's 2025 budget. 8.5.2 is a request for a public hearing on the West Side Triangle annexation to be held on November 19th. 8.6, there are several ordinances. 8.6.1 is an ordinance for land use and development code text amendments regarding updates to occupancy standards and natural medicine statutory regulations to be held on November 5th. 8.6.2 is an introduction of an ordinance for land use and development code text amendments regarding updates to the lighting code, provisions to align with dark sky standards to be held on November 5th. 8.6.3 is introduction of an ordinance for the West Side Triangle annexation. 8.6.4 is introduction of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Court of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals, Article 1 in general, Section 4.1, 4-1, definitions. 8.6.5 is introduction of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals, Article 1 in general, Section 4-14, vicious animals. 8.6.6 is introduction of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals, Article 1 in general, Section 4-99, disposition of vicious animals being held on complaint. 8.6.7 is introduction of an ordinance amending in pertinent part the Durango Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Animals, Article 1 in general, Section 4-8, fighting animals. 8.7 is a request for excused absence for Councilor Youssef, requesting an absence from the council meeting today on October 15th. And that concludes the consent agenda.
It's a long consent agenda. Good job. Does anyone have anything to pull from the consent agenda, or do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second,
Council discussion? Can we get a vote?
Councilor Basman's,
Yes.
Councilor Youssef is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Yazi,
yes.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Councilor Woodruff.
Yes.
Great. Nothing under item 9 then. Item 10, public hearings. There is no items. Item 11, resolutions. 11.1, a resolution recommending for city council to hire an external auditor submitted by finance. Mr. Bob Grogan.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and city staff. My name is Bob Grogan. I'm the purchasing manager for the city of Durango.
And I'm here to present our findings on the professional auditing services that we did an RFP on. So I'd like to acknowledge our mission statements for this. So an evaluation criteria was done with 4 city staff members on this project. It was the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mr. Madrigal and Ms. Devon Schmidt were our evaluators on this proposal. It was a fair and equitable process that is evaluated independently from everybody's reviews. And so what I'd like to present is the evaluation scores for you. But as you can see, we evaluated the firms on 7 different types of requirements and criteria for this project. These are the combined scores for the 4 firms that have submitted proposals for this project. As you can see, I. Bailey came up with a 88.25 on the evaluation scores. This is the project's timeline that we followed to have a fair and equitable selection process for this. Bids were submitted and questions were submitted on BidNet for this project. And so it is my recommendation for the council to make a vote for this, sorry, I'm stuttering here, for I. Bailey for this project. So is there any questions you guys would like to have for me on this?
We're gonna have a motion we're gonna have a motion first, and then we can ask questions and have a
Sure.
discussion.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make a motion to recommend that the city council approve resolution R-2024-XX to hire external city auditors, Ide Bailey.
Second?
Great, council discussion. Do we have any questions?
I guess I said a quick question. Can you just help me walk me through the process of kind of how these were scored? Were they independent, and then how the cumulative scores kind of came about?
I'd like to. Each evaluator is handed a confidentiality statement. They must abide by that and not discuss the project with any other staff members or the public during this evaluation process. So once this evaluation process is done, they would turn in a scoring to me, and I would add their scorings to a Excel matrix that we use to come up with these numbers.
Okay. So everybody did theirs individually, like
Independently, correct.
independently.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And no conversation with each other during the course?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's not.
And so there are 4?
4, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to being a part of the evaluation committee that Gilda and I were, I will say thank you. It was super professional, everything was laid out. I don't think you've been a part of an RFP submission yet. I think Counselor Bosman's has, but it's all like laid out and exactly like there's a complete RFP package that describes what you're looking for. And then hopefully they've submitted the exact thing so you can kind of compare them to each other. You give each of them a score. No, Devin, Jose, like none of us spoke. We couldn't speak. We signed a confidentiality. Mr. Grogan walked us through everything beforehand and then kind of sent us on our way. And we all had to submit our sealed like scores to him by a certain day. So it was super great and professional. And
Awesome. Did you guys know the name of the company as you were evaluating?
yeah, it was in their proposals. So all the proposals that we evaluated, they had their name throughout. And because they also have to give, their senior staff and staff under, so they give such a background on their company, what they've done, their, qualifications, that it would be almost impossible, I think.
That makes sense.
not-
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good questions. You beat me to it. That's, I appreciate that. And also the summary of the process. I was just curious because the one that get the recommendation had significantly higher than all 3, which were similarly well below.
Right.
What is the big competitive edge that this company has versus what is why do the other ones score so low, similarly low?
It was, so the evaluation, as you know, is an independent evaluation. So each evaluator reads the proposals that were submitted and acts on what the criteria was for that responsiveness for responding to that, to that criteria that criteria that we put forth in the RFP. So if a proposer does not respond to what that evaluator likes towards that evaluation criteria, they therefore would score that to that rankings between, I think, 0 and 5, 0 and 20 and stuff like that. So it's an independent evaluation. So, and evaluators, they put their scoring down and we came out to that scoring matrix.
Yeah, I was just wondering, maybe there was the trend that this company that's recommended is just way cheaper, and that's the key reason why they scored so significantly higher compared to the other ones, or because they have the
Sure.
experience local. And I was just curious to see why they all
Right.
the other ones were so stick with the same.
Sure.
Same one, but appreciate the explanation.
And it is, an independent evaluation. So I believe Mayor said you were on an RFP before process.
Yeah, that was a while ago, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a lot of reading. Plus you have the bid documents to read, you have the addendums to read, and then you have the 4 proposals that were submitted. So it's some hefty reading that they have to do to come to that idea that how they feel to rank that proposer for that project.
Yep. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, can I have a vote?
For the record, this will be resolution 2024-0062. Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes,
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
and Mayor Buell.
Yes. Thank you.
Great.
Great.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right, next up, 11.2, a resolution to approve the Crater Apartments preliminary development plan submitted by Community Development. We have Mark Williams. Hi.
Oops. Thank you, Mayor Buell. Mark Williams, Community Development Department. And as you said, this is a review of the Crater preliminary plan development for 500 apartment units. This is just west of Mercy Hospital, highlighted in the green area. It's about 20 acres. This is actually the 3rd time council has seen a project out here. A couple of years ago, council approved a 492 unit apartment building. Last year, the original developers, BLD, wanted to split that into 2 different parcels to help develop it. And now we're seeing the project again, this time with 500 apartments, and it'll be done in 5 phases. This is a preliminary development plan, which is the 2nd stage in our PD process, as you can see on this little process flow we have. Everything out in South Fork has already had the conceptual first step done. The South Fork master plan is that first step, so they go straight to the 2nd step. And then they would do the final plan, which is administrator review, and the building permits the last thing that they get to. So as I mentioned, 500 apartments in 5 phases. That's obviously a very large apartment complex. And so the phasing is intended to help the developer, who's now Shaw, who's done quite a bit of projects in the Durango area, to make it a more manageable development size. We want to extend also the length of the approval for the project. Typically, when you get to this stage and then get a final approval that's valid for 3 years, we'd like to do 5 years with an extension, that administrative extension being possible, to go through those that market absorption. And 7 years from now, we would probably come back to council to renew the project if it hadn't been done by that point. So there are a number of amenities typical for nicer apartment complexes, walking paths, there's vehicle as well as bicycle access and pedestrian access. There's a clubhouse with the gym. There are pickleball courts away from all but one of the buildings, picnic areas, and several larger internal open spaces. And the Community Development Commission reviewed this at its September public meeting and recommended approval 7-0. One of the most important things to talk about with this project is, as you know, we have a new fair share ordinance that includes rental. This was submitted before the rental fair share took effect, but they have voluntarily agreed to provide 25 apartments. As you can see, that'll be a mix of studio 1 and 2 bedroom units, and those will be affordable to people earning between 80% to 125% of the area median income. We want to have a 30-year affordability period to make sure that that really does make an impact. And in exchange for getting that, the city would contribute development fees just for those specifically identified affordable units. That comes out to right now about $160,000 to $163,000. But over the period of 30 years, the public would receive many multiples of that and benefit from reduced rents. So it's a good deal for the city. Another one of the big important things about the project is the phasing plan. So going right to left, phase 2 is actually first on here. That's the southern part of the property. And then phase 1, and then 3, 4, and 5. The key thing for phasing the project is each of these phases needs to be able to provide the tenants who are going to live there with the services and amenities that they would need. For example, phase 1 and 2 are probably going to be built together. So they'll have the pickleball court, they'll have parking for everything, all the units that are there, as well as some other amenities and utilities and access from the street. Where you see phase 3 in the light blue, there'll be probably a gravel driveway for emergency access. When you have that many apartments, you need to have a secondary access per the fire code, as well as building codes for the city and our land use code. It doesn't need to be paved at this point, but when phase 3 comes on board, obviously the parking lot will be phased at that time as the units are being built. And then when phases 4 and 5 are built, that third access onto Crater Ranch Road will come online. So if you, I guess we could take a second just looking at the site plan. I'll try to use the point that it worked. All right, so there's the clubhouse. And this is the main amenity area. The current site plan has 8 apartments on the second floor of the clubhouse, which is the where you're finding 8 more units from what was approved 2 years ago. There's another large amenity area, open space area for phases 4 and 5. And then one thing I failed to point out was the detention for the whole site will be done as part of phase 2. So that's one place where they have to work ahead and provide detention there because everything flows in that direction. Otherwise, most of the development details will be done on a per phase basis. So we've got a few renderings. The previously approved project was 4 stories. It's now 3 stories. So there's no height request variance or anything like that. It's under our 40-foot height limit. There's 3 main building materials for the exterior. There's the faux brick and then the wood-like appearance, which is the lighter wood color. And then the board and batten siding. I think that staff would like to see a little bit more color on this, with maybe a little bit more of the wood color where that one on the left is, that module that's brought out. I need to go back. So one of our requirements for urban design is to break up buildings horizontally and vertically. We don't like to see big blank walls, or even if they have windows, still not broken up in any way. So as you can see, this building has got the vertical breaks in some of these features as well as the horizontal that comes out. So that complies with our design guidelines. This is the clubhouse, 2 stories with the brick and the wood looking. It's an attractive building. We always take a look at the ends of the buildings because we have requirements that you can't just have a big blank wall, and usually the ends of buildings is where that happens. This is broken up with the windows, the change in materials, so this also complies with our design guidelines as well. This is a typical entrance into the buildings. You may or may not recall that the previously approved apartments 2 years ago were open breezeways, so this you would have just walked right in, and there were open air breezeways in between all the hallways. So now it's climate controlled. And one thing, probably the biggest change in the
Great, thank you for the presentation. Do I have a motion? Oh, can we go back?
We could go back to the previous slide, please.
Do you know how to?
which, whoops,
Oh, boy.
Oh, gosh. Oh,
This
one
one?
more. Nope. Oh, forward. No, like the other way.
that was
The
a motion.
motion.
Okay.
There we go.
I move to approve the proposed preliminary development plan for the Crater Apartments project with the conditions listed in the staff report and as may be adopted at the public hearing.
I'll second. Council discussion.
I just had a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Mark. Since they didn't have to comply with the new fair share ordinance, does that mean they had to comply with the previous version of the fair share program? Those requirements?
No, previously fair share only applied to for sale units, so there was no requirement for them to provide.
Oh, so this is strictly rental. There's no opportunities for purchase. Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then I assume there's going to be some sort of traffic impact study, and I guess maybe a preclusion to that would be, and I apologize if I missed this, but is Crater Ranch Road, is that going to be the only in and out for that entire complex? I saw the road map, but I didn't see any other road access.
Maybe this one's a little bit better. So Crater Ranch Road will be the primary access coming up here, but there'll be an east-west road called Arena Lane. And then High Llama Lane is also, it was formerly just an access easement to houses up here. That's now public right of way. And it's being developed so that there'll be a loop access. And there was a traffic study done. It showed that by 2042, cars turning left here from Crater Ranch Road onto Wilson Gulch at certain times of day, there would be what's called level of service D. There's specific criteria for that, which basically means there's more delay. There'd be somewhat delayed at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I remember this project, we had it a couple of times, 2 years ago, I think was the first time. So I'm glad to see progress. Hopefully we keep that traction going. And I was just curious, so I will support this. I think we need housing and including every type of housing. In the motion and the there's a bunch of conditions. And I saw that one condition about 25 feet away from a tree trunk for parking. And I'm like, is this really something we put in conditions? I've never seen that before. Why is that in there? It's just very minuscule things like this.
So that's a code requirement when someone develops parking, every parking spot is supposed to be within 25 feet of a tree trunk. We actually had a discussion about that with the applicant after the CDC meeting and agreed to give them a little flexibility with that because there are some larger, there's some larger areas, internal parking, such as these, where that'd be really difficult to do. So if they could meet the minimum parking or landscaping standards in other places, then we could give them some relief on that really strict requirement.
Well, the reason I bring it up, I assumed it was a code requirement, but we don't make into this document every code requirement and condition for approval. It's going to be assumed, I assume.
Right.
That's part of their approval process. And so I just found it a bit interesting that was pulled out, especially.
Fair comment.
Yeah, I appreciate the update and I look forward to this project moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for presenting that plan. I was curious, are there any handicap units or are there any handicap rails or is there an elevator to get upstairs?
So two-part question. The answer to the second part of the question about elevators, the developer is going from 4 stories to 3 stories, so they do not have to do elevators. I think that's one of the reasons that BLD had a hard time making this project pencil. The elevators are expensive. It's hard to get people here to service elevators. So that's probably a little bit of local knowledge that Shaw used to his benefit to develop this. And there are no specifically required accessible units. Maybe Dan Murphy, who's here representing the applicant, might have a little bit more information on that.
And then just to clarify, you said it, but I just wanted to make sure that as the phases are getting developed, there will be affordable rentals in every phase.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I think the math's pretty easy. 25 units, 5 phases. So
Yeah.
at least 5 per phase.
Great, excellent. Thank you. Anything else? All right, can I have a vote?
For the record, this is Resolution 2024-63. Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Yes.
Councillor Woodruff,
Yes.
Councillor Bosman's,
Yes.
and Mayor Buell.
Yes. All right, next up, item 11.3, a resolution to amend the city's budget submitted by finance. We have Elliot.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. This is a resolution to amend the 2024 budget and would also like to acknowledge the city's mission, vision, and values before we get into it. So we are amending several funds tonight. First, we're looking at the operating fund for water and transportation services. And as you can see, we do have the ending fund balance to do these amendments with the increased expense. And additionally, we are amending the airport capital fund, which has both revenue and expense amendment. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tony Vicari for the airport amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tony Vicari, Airport Director at the Durango La Plata County Airport. Here to present 4 different capital projects that are requiring a budget amendment under the airport. I'll walk through these one at a time. First off is a very simple project. This is the Landside Parking Development Phase 2 design project. So this is design on construction intended for next year to expand our main parking lot. Quite simply, we're looking to appropriate an additional $30,000 to this project budget. We exceeded the original budget due to additional work used through the spring and summer in conjunction with the Airport Commission to do a series of additional concept reviews on long-term parking expansion. So we used a little bit more scope than we anticipated in that early part of the year and just looking to make that small adjustment to capture the full design before bidding and subsequently construction next year. Second project and the most impactful in terms of the presentation today is for the wastewater system effluent treatment upgrade project at the airport. We have a 3-lagoon wastewater treatment system at the airport that we own and manage independent of any external utility. We've been working for several years in conjunction with CDPHE to design improvements to the lagoon system to meet changing standards. That's easiest to think of this project as a very, very small representation of what happened at the Santa Rita wastewater reclamation facility several years ago with the city. So moving through that process, we finally were able to complete design after an extended state review period. Unfortunately, our bids came back extremely high. We were over 70% above our engineer's estimate, which was a shocking number to us on that front. We did receive 5 bids, so we had a competitive bidding environment, and we're able to do some additional work after those bids were received and have subsequently come to the conclusion that this is just the reality of our current volatile bidding environment. And unfortunately, we have limited movement here for either value engineering on the project, because it's a very streamlined project that's already passed a whole series of state reviews, and there's just not a lot of extra scope to be able to whittle out of the project. And then secondarily, we are on a compliance schedule through CDPHE to deliver these improvements. So consequently, we're recommending a budget amendment to increase the project budget on this by $1.25 million. That's a substantial swing overall, and the airport's intent to fund that change in overall project cost is twofold. One, we are underrunning some of our currently appropriated capital projects to the tune of about $200,000 currently here in 2024. So we'll be offsetting those costs to some degree through underruns that we're anticipating now. And then the remainder of this is something that we'll be working with in the future with the Airport Commission to potentially do some reshuffling of our capital plans in 26 and 27. And the airport remains in strong financial position. Even with these changes, we'll retain well over a year of cash on hand as it relates to operating expenses. So in the near term, this doesn't disrupt the airport's financial stability, but it will cause us to have to reshuffle a few items down the road at the airport. But given the compliance nature of this particular project, we're recommending moving forward. And then the last two are related and more good news type of aspects. So these are 2 new projects we're proposing to appropriate here in 2024. Reason we are appropriating them now and doing so in general is the discretionary grant we received from the FAA about a month ago for phase 1B of the terminal came in about $2 million higher than anticipated. Obviously a very good problem to have. And so what that allows us to do is to pull back some entitlement funding that comes to the airport annually out of phase 1B from the terminal and reapply it to other projects. Basically, we're counting on having to use our 2025 funding from the FAA to support phase 1B, but since we got more funding this year, we're able to pull that money out. And so what we're doing with the FAA is accelerating 2 projects that were previously on our 2026 slate and moving them up a year to 2025. And that'll be the 2 projects I'm mentioning now. So the first one is a snow removal equipment acquisition, looking to appropriate just over $1 million, $1.03 million for the acquisition of a new vehicle and runway broom. This is the primary piece of equipment we use at the airport to sweep snow and ice off the runway and taxiway surfaces to ensure that we can get the minimum levels of friction needed to safely take off and land aircraft during winter conditions. We have an aging broom fleet. Our two of our 3 primary brooms are over 20 years of age and beginning to significantly wear. So looking to acquire a new piece of equipment. And this is a 95% FAA grant funded project. In conjunction with this, in your documentation, you also see the associated grant revenue will be appropriated to the budget as well to reflect this. And then lastly, similarly, using our FAA entitlement dollars for 2025, we're looking to replace a PAPI, which is a precision approach path indicator. It's a navigational aid, basically a series of electronic light boxes on the side of a runway that aircraft use to associate or acquire a glide slope, basically the appropriate angle to approach the runway upon landing. This is an airport-owned nav aid, one that's also aging at 20 years of age and requiring additional maintenance and replacement cycles. So simply looking to acquire and install replacement electronics for that PAPI. Again, this is a 95% FAA funded project and the associated revenues will be appropriated as well. And lastly, the reason why these 2 projects are being appropriated now in late 2024 is to allow us to initiate design on both those projects. These are fairly simplistic. The design is largely simplistic around basically drawing up bid documentation and meeting some minimum FAA specifications. So we'll be able to complete this design in the last quarter of 2024, issue bids over the winter, and be able to meet construction cycles and acquisition cycles under the FAA grant program in 2025. So that's why the timing is now as opposed to in January. And so with that, I would take any questions on the airport projects.
Any questions from counselors? Oh, yeah.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Well, with that, I'll hand it off to Sarah.
Tony. Hello, Sarah Hill, Transportation Director. This request is for 2 full-time transit operators. It was actually included in the 2025 budget instead of the 2024 mid-year amendment as it was intended, but we do have an operational need for it now. When we launched our microtransit evening service in October last year, it was operating as a pilot, so we did not hire additional staff at the time. We used overtime, part-time hours. So now that route is being incorporated into our service full-time because it's so awesome and successful, we do have the need to backfill those shifts and those hours. And the cost requested for these 2 full-time positions is going to be offset by savings in our overtime, and also the fact that we're having to pull in shift supervisors and other staff that make higher hourly wages to operate the shifts now. Happy to take questions when needed.
Excellent. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, Devin Schmidt, Chief Financial Officer for the city. I am here before you to talk about a request to add 4 full-time meter tech positions and the associated costs with those. This is to focus exclusively on the meter replacement of 3,400 meters that we have identified as failing meters. So in 2018, the city meters were replaced with Zeners. Since then, there's been an issue with the freeze plate and the 3/8 meter causing them to fail. In 2025, 2 meter technicians were added to collections and distributions. However, with the pressing mandated objectives by the state, those positions were absorbed and those staff members were refocused to work on the lead and copper initiative. So these meters do need to be replaced. With this replacement, we will be able to reduce lost revenue and minimize any damage to our customers whose meters may fail. When looking at some of those operational costs, it will take until about 2026 to complete the project, even with 4 dedicated staff members managing exclusively meter replacements. Once this project is complete, those folks will be able to continue to work in collections and distribution, and they will be able to supplement the need in that future lead and copper initiative once the water project is complete.
Excellent. We have the recommendation on there. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve resolution R 2024-0064, appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies in the amounts and for the purpose as set forth below for capital, grant, and operating expenditures for the city of Durango, Colorado for the 2024 budget year.
Second.
Great. Council discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have questions on the staffing, and then I have a question for Tony after. So this is for additional employees, correct? For full-time employees?
In the for collections and distribution for the 4 meter technicians and
the other
for
ones.
transportation, correct?
Now, it's mid-October, so are we gonna hire someone this fast and give him salary that needs to be budgeted or amended in the budget for this year at these amounts? Because it seems to be quite a significant amount for a month, 2 months of employment.
Sure. So I can answer on the meter technicians component. Those are looking at an annual budget. with where we're at with our current recruitment process of only being 35 days. And as I understand, we already have a collections distribution position technician posted. That is not for these 4 positions. This is for a different need through attrition. We would be able to hire pretty rapidly the meter technicians. I would certainly offer for Sarah to discuss the transit driver situation as well.
Sure. Thanks for the question. We have actually some part-time employees that are ready to step into the full-time roles. And we proposed the full amount so that that is reflected in our fund balance for 2025.
Yeah, so just so I understand, so you're asking for an annual salary and all the benefits, even though it's for an amended budget for this year. Is that the correct way to do it? I mean, it's more of a financial process question than, I mean, it's not about the employees, it's about you're hiring someone and you're amending the budget for 2024, and we're speaking of 2 months at most of employment, but you're applying a full year salary to that amendment. So to me, that seems maybe.
So on the resolution, you will see employees are considered recurring costs, so it is included in that recurring column. I think it's important for council to understand that this is a recurring expense to the city. There, at least for the meter technicians, there is an ask for 2 vehicles and the equipment associated as well with those positions. So that is why that one is significantly higher. It would be looking to purchase 2 vehicles for those technicians as well.
Okay, well, just, I'm gonna just assume, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that it is legally correct to make a budget amendment with a full year salary, even though it is only 2 months at most. It's not, that is exactly correct to do it financially in that manner. Because to me, that's why I asked the question. To me, it would seem not correct. So I'm just asking you, I'm not a specialist.
I mean, I think I certainly would let Mark discuss it, but from a legal perspective, I don't see why there would be an issue.
But you also did say there were vehicles, 2 vehicles that were part of that number, correct?
Correct.
That would be purchased this year, correct?
Correct.
So it's not just an entire annual salary, correct?
So we do have the annual salaries listed in that
Mhm.
recurring line item so that
Sure.
we're able to show what that recurring cost is to the city. Should council look to hire 4 full-time positions and 2 full-time transit drivers.
Thank you.
As far as legal concerns, there aren't any. The way you budget and the way you've shown it is appropriate. It's not truly a legal question.
Okay, that answers that question. And then the other question was for Tony, if I may. The equipment, we see a lot of times delivery delays with equipment.
Mhm.
Do you anticipate issues there or?
I do.
Been on top of stuff? maybe?
Yeah, no, I do. The SRE, the snow removal equipment acquisition project in particular, which I'll go back to here, we are likely to see some very extended manufacturing timelines. So all the more important for us to get this moving. Current estimations on snow removal equipment are about 500 days of manufacturing timeline. So we'll be obviously appropriating this now, looking to bid this, hopefully open bids in the March timeline. We'll be waiting for the grant funding to come through, which is typically in the June timeframe, and it'll be plus 500 days beyond there. Grants to the FAA have a 4-year performance period. So we'll be pretty safely within the performance period of the grant, but we won't likely not see the delivery of that vehicle until 26 or potentially even 27 realistically. So this will sit on the books for a couple of fiscal years.
Okay, well, thanks for looking far ahead.
Yeah.
We don't run into troubles. Thank you.
Thank you. And I get what you're saying, with the recurring salaries, to me, the 186 divided by 2, anyways, it would be $31,000 the way you're thinking about it, instead of being 186. Is that, you're looking at why there's that delta there, right?
My point is really, you budget for a year and we
Right.
amend the budget for that year. And next year, we had the discussion yesterday. We plan for next year. So why would we put in a full year, the next
Sure.
10 months into this year, even though that's not relevant?
Sure, just-
Doesn't matter the amount, even if it's
Right.
$1.
Right.
But we don't care.
Okay. Tony, real quick, the delta between what your engineers thought versus that estimate that came in, and you had a third party that said the construction estimates were sound. Why was there that big of a gap, I guess, to start with?
Yeah, great question. And I have much the same questions. We were pretty frustrated when we opened those bids and saw those particular numbers on that front. We don't have a perfect answer for it other than our, cost estimate that was put together by the engineering firm that did the design was, in my opinion, now hindsight being 2020, just not as dialed in as it should have been. It is an out-of-town engineering firm. It's specific to some very, very specific, small lagoon operations that were a little bit unique. They're out of the Midwest and not our particular area. I think there was a bit of a miss in terms of the local construction costs, realistically on that front. So lesson learned for us in terms of being dialed in on that cost estimate. But I think it was a bit of a miss on the market understanding was probably the primary thing. And then we are also just seeing a lot of volatility in the wastewater side in particular. There's a fair amount of uniqueness to wastewater projects, especially lagoons, because you have to keep the lagoon running while you're constructing. And so what that's actually going to mean is they're going to have to haul wastewater off and actually bring it into Santa Rita during the project to keep the lagoons functioning and the biology happening. And so what I'm learning is I'm not a wastewater expert, but I've become one by extension by running a wastewater operation at the airport, is that there's just inherently a lot of risk portfolio, more so than I realized in terms of working construction on wastewater, at least on active lagoons. And I think that's just another thing that just for whatever reason wasn't appropriately baked into our original cost estimates.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then it's not necessarily about the FTEs, but the Zener, those were installed in what, 2019? Is that what I read? 2018, 2019?
2018.
Okay. Is there like a life, like a certain life expectancy for those units?
Yes, I would need Bob Lowry to help me with that one.
That'd be
There's
great, thank you.
certainly, but there is a manufacturer defect that we are aware of with those freeze plates. It's a component that exists within the inside of the meter apparatus. And it's called a freeze plate, but this issue of failure is not related specifically to freezing. It actually is a manufacturer issue that has been identified. So the goal would be to replace those with a Neptune meter. And it is specific to those 3/8. We have lots of different gauges of meters throughout the city, depending on the water volume and those usages. But yeah, freeze plate's a little bit misleading. That's simply what it's called. But as far as lifespan, Bob could probably answer that better than I could.
Sure. Well, and I guess what I'm leading to, and Bob, maybe you can answer this. Is there any way, because of that lifetime expectancy that's expected out of those units and that it's a manufacturer defect, are we going to get any recoup of cost of those units or about the labor incurred of having to replace all these units?
Councilor Bob Lowry, Interim Public Works Director. I believe there was some previous litigation action. Before I got here, I don't know how that wound up or terminated, but typically a meter ought to last 10 to 12 years. What generally they wear out because the spinner will start to wear and slow down and you start getting inaccurate readings on it. But 10 to 12 years is a normal life cycle for a water meter.
Okay. And these were 5-6 years, it sounds like.
Counselor, I can tell you that we've had a couple of claims against the city for these meters failing. CIRSA got involved and we have outside counsel through CIRSA who is familiar with this type of issue failure problem. And they have drafted a demand to Zener, and I will report back to you once we have the results of that. There are some issues with some of the time delays in how the defects were found and reported. And then, of course, time delays are always running against attorneys for actions. So we have some things to overcome, but through CIRSA with my department, we do intend to make a claim against Zener to make the city as whole as possible relative to these defective meters.
Can I provide some additional information? Out of personal experience, you have the faulty water meters. And I've seen emails from our community come to me where the responsibility for damages is a gray zone because the city tends to say it's not their responsibility, but the homeowner who cannot touch the water meter has the consequences of the damages. And I think at a certain point, the council will have to deal with if there is a major water leak in someone's house based on a faulty water meter that we know have defects, that might cause a consequence for the city. And I'm sure Mark is familiar with that, but I'm not sure if the council, and especially you two, were familiar with that.
Yeah. And maybe just one last question. Is that okay?
I have to have a.
Oh.
Can I have a motion to?
Motion to extend time?
Second. Council discussion? And a vote. What?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Sorry, Bob, do we know with those 3,400 units to replace what the expected timeline is with those 4 new FTEs to get that accomplished?
Typically, one crew is able to do 8 or 10 a day. I haven't done the multiplication, but I think what Devin said is right. We'll be well into 2026. I've made a commitment that those 4 employees will do nothing but replace meters. We won't pull them off, unless we have a natural disaster or something that requires all hands on deck, but they will be committed full-time to meter replacement until they're all changed out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have one question also.
Turn on my hearing aids here.
We're having water meter issues. Is this all over the community or is just a certain neighborhoods that need these replacements?
They're pretty much all over the community. It wasn't a single area that they were put in.
All right, can I have a vote?
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
All right, 11.4, a resolution amending the lease with the Powerhouse submitted by the city manager's office.
Yes, Mayor and Council, we do have a request from Powerhouse. I do see Jeff Susser, who is the Executive Director of Powerhouse here. Definitely can fill in anything that I happen to miss, but they were recently awarded a $750,000 grant by the state to provide childcare services out of the Powerhouse. In their current lease, that's not an approved use in their lease to do childcare services. So they have requested the ability to place a sentence in the uses that's been reviewed by Mark that would allow the use of informal and formal childcare and education as a use to be able to use in the Powerhouse. So this resolution would just add that into their approved uses and allowing them to do childcare services out of the Powerhouse Museum. Jeff, is there anything that you would like to add? Sure.
I think the only thing that I want to clarify is that the space at the museum we would utilize is the one-story education building. It wouldn't impact the museum itself. It wouldn't change operating hours or public access, so.
And staff does recommend approval of resolution.
2024-65.
Great, do I have a motion?
I move to approve or amending the lease with the Powerhouse for resolution 2024-65.
I'll second. Council discussion?
Okay, so does this fit within the Powerhouse mission statement to provide childcare? Because now you're going to be competing with other childcare facilities for caretaking children.
Commissioner Yazzie, we went through a strategic planning process in 2023 and really defined our mission as supporting children, their learning, their development in the community, partly through the museum. And the child care project was one of the initiatives identified in that strategic planning process to address that mission. I guess what I'd say is we've worked really closely with peer existing providers in consulting them over the last year as we've looked at this project. And we started with that question is, are we stepping into a space where we're competing and threatening anybody who's already operating and serving the community? And the consistent answer from everyone is no, there's a huge gap in care. We've got about 1,100 children not served by licensed childcare. And the Early Childhood Council has been supportive, peer providers have been supportive, that, yeah, the need in the community is so large that we haven't heard concern from any of our peers that we're stepping into a space that threatens their existing and future business.
Jeff, real quick, sorry to keep going back and forth.
Perfect.
About how many positions will become available for childcare?
Yeah, we're targeting opening one toddler classroom that would serve up to 12 children and 2 preschool classrooms that would serve up to 16 children each. So a total of 44 spaces.
44 spaces. And that would be from normal 8 to 4, 8 to 5, or?
Yeah, I think one of the things that would be a distinguishing feature is that we would operate as an extended day program. That's the intent, and a year-round program. And part of that is that the funding opportunity that we've been working with has really been around employer-based care. And so we've built a planned operating model to support the needs of working families. And that really is around 12 months of care rather than a school year schedule.
Yep. Well, I think you're absolutely right. There is definitely a pretty significant gap in childcare in our community. So 44 units is an incredible step forward. So thank you.
One more question. How long is this grant for? Is this just for the current fiscal year, or is this like a 5-year grant? So
Yeah,
what, and also what happens after the grants? You don't get any more money.
Yeah, terrific. So it is, it's actually a one-time grant to support capital costs. So the grant actually supports the renovations on the campus to meet licensing requirements and open the space. It doesn't actually cover operating costs. We've developed a pro forma budget to ensure that this can operate sustainably once we open. And that model is a mix of, again, part of the model of an employer-based care is having an employer partner who is financially investing in the center to make sure that we're paying living wages, ensuring financial accessibility. So there's that expectation with our partners. We'd be participating in the CCAP program and the Universal Pre-K program, and have identified long-term funders through foundations that are specifically interested in helping support the opening and maintaining of a viable childcare in the community.
So you're looking at the childcare facility to pay for itself and not be a deficit on the Powerhouse budget?
That's the intent. That's right.
All right, thank you. Can I get a roll call?
Mayor Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie.
Yes.
Item 11.5, a resolution providing direction to city staff to provide a proposed list of revisions to the policy process resolution R-2022-0027 with the goal of allowing the city council to support or oppose legislation more effectively submitted by Counselor Woodruff.
Mayor and council, if I can just add a little bit just on the process, this was placed on other new business. It was voted on to move forward to be placed on the agenda for consideration. So staff has placed what I believe was the intention that I received from that meeting for a resolution. At this time now, it's up for the council for discussion. So someone would need to make a motion to begin that.
So you want me to make a motion for the intended resolution or for opening the conversation?
I believe it would be making a motion on the resolution, whether to approve or not. That's what would start the ability to, after a second, to have discussion with the council.
Yes, I move to provide direction to city staff to provide a proposed list of revisions to the policy process resolution R-2022-0027 with the goal of allowing the city council to support or oppose legislation more effectively.
I'll second. Okay, council discussion. Take us off.
Yeah, so when the Gold King Mine Spill Compensation Act came from Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett's office, when I saw that press release that came from our senators, I noticed that the county had written a letter of support, and some other entities had written letters of support. And so I asked Jose at our one-on-one, and I even sent an email out, I think, to the rest of the board, the council, suggesting that we should also write a letter of support, because this is something that directly benefits our small businesses that were adversely impacted by the Gold King mine spill. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to really jump on and say how much we support this and how this is going to positively benefit our community and our small business community. But then City Manager Madrigal mentioned that this resolution 2022-0027 has within it that we have to have both a support delegation and a not support delegation to present both sides of an issue in order for us to be able to take a stance one way or another. I think that especially for something like this, that should be a slam dunk, that it's barrier laden, and it prevents us a quick opportunity to be like, yes, we absolutely support this. Let's make sure that we write a letter of support for a resolution that makes sense for our community. I understand if there is a contentious thing that might become before us, but it sounds like we also have a resolution intact that we had passed earlier on in the year that prevents us from taking some stances on certain issues. But if we do decide that we're not sure if we want to support or not support any sort of other state or federal legislation, I think the onus is on us to say, hey, I want to hear both sides of this before we take a position. I think we have the opportunity and the power to be able to delegate that.
I'll just add that there's been a couple bills that have come forward when there was that housing bill last Tuesday, that Governor Polis tried to push through, that Cass and CML both wanted us to write a letter and take a stance on. So we've had different issues that have affected our Durango specific that we didn't take a stance on necessarily because it did take so many steps. And so, I'd be interested in getting a proposed list of revisions to the policy process that we could consider. I think that's interesting. Any other?
Okay, my comment is, I'd be against this only because from past practices, we can't even manage our current relationships. How are we going to go ahead and manage something on a statewide or national level, dealing with the state government and also federal government? Because there are lobbyists that do this professionally. We have hired a temporary or contract, what are they called?
A legislative services.
Okay, a legislative services person. I think we should wait and let them see what they come up with, what impacts us, instead of going out of our lane. Because I just don't have confidence in city council making decisions that impact places outside of the city of Durango.
Mayor Pro Tem, I see your point, and I guess for me, this would allow, instead of, basically the legislative services, in my mind, provides us with information, and what we do with that information is entirely on us. They're just the arbiters of, hey, this is going on the state, this is what's going on the federal level, and allows us to be able to take in that information and then react to it or not react to it, and that's our choice. But that therein lies the issue in my mind, is that we either can react or we cannot react. But with this resolution, I feel like it prohibits us from being able to really jump on and be quick about, man, this Gold King Mine Spill Compensation Act really makes sense. But instead of us being able to take a stance on it sooner, now we have to find a body that supports this and a body that doesn't support it, and then they have to report to us, and then we have to make a decision, and then we have to, and then we can go forward from there. To me, that is entirely too cumbersome in my mind to have to go through. But the legislative services is just conveying information on what's going on. They're not there to take a role for us. They're just here. They're just there in my mind is like, hey, this is what's going on. We then get to synthesize that information and be able to do what we want with it.
Maybe, I will chime in. I see your intent, makes sense. I also agree with Councilor Yazzie. With this resolution, you're basically saying to the city staff, run with it, and we'll see what comes back to you. Would it be beneficial if there would be some sort of more detailed discussion about the actual resolution so that you can really convey what changes you would like to see in a document and give that direction to staff instead of letting, so you get your wishes fulfilled? And that could probably be a study session or any location where officially, because it seems sometimes our hands are tied to have discussions, any place where we can have a discussion about something.
It's here right now.
Yeah, but we don't have the resolution in front of us. We don't have the details of changes. We don't have the, maybe that would be another way to do it.
And maybe this can be a conversation that I can have with City Manager Madrigal at one of my one-on-ones about, what I envisioned this resolution looking like. But I guess I wanted to see if there was council support before I move forward with anything. And then maybe we can have the conversation of what supposed changes could come forth and then have that conversation and really go about what's important to us, what's not important to us, and then maybe hammer out the resolution together. But right now, I guess I wanted to see if there was support before we move forward. And I wasn't letting letting staff run away with it, I guess. I just wanted to see if we had support to look at it and see if we can really make inroads on how we can better, more quickly react to some things.
So just to make sure, are you open to say whatever form it has to be, to say this, I want to have a discussion where we look at the resolution and we discuss the changes that you see are important, as well as I might see important and everybody else, before we are investing staff time to come up with something and then it goes nowhere. I'll put it this way. I am inclined to say no because it's too vague. And I would prefer you make good points, and I would prefer to have those points given as direction for the changes that you would like to see, assuming we come to some sort of a majority agreement on it.
I guess the vagueness is because I needed to see if there was support first, and then
Then I'm stuck with.
but you're not so stuck because you can vote no against it whenever when I come with
Wait,
that list of
I have one more
revisions.
point.
I know, but you've talked and now they're getting into a discussion. So we're gonna time out real quick. We're just gonna call this to order. I'm just gonna I'm going to turn on my microphone and then I'm gonna say, you have 3 minutes to respond because you have one more comment. Go ahead.
Okay, I realize, Dave, your stance here, and I appreciate that. But there's another consideration here is to throw out this work to the staff. Now, they're all very highly skilled in their departments, but I don't see the staff as being able to filter through governmental legislation, like that, because you have to follow the legislation from the very beginning through committee and all these steps. It's really tough. And, we have time because right now Congress is out, they're not even meeting, so I think that, maybe we should just think about this and, bring it up again later and let our, what did you call again? The legislative
Services.
there's legislative services individual, if there's something coming up, they can bring it to us. But right now, this, I don't even know if it's been proposed to Congress and it still has to get voted out of committee, and that could never happen, That's just how legislation works.
Okay, I'm going to make a couple final comments. I agree with both of you in some regards that getting more like information from where we're going and making sure that we agree with the process. And I think, if I'm correct, and maybe you can help direct us, is that this resolution is giving staff the, like saying, okay, staff, go and like give us a list of revisions, a proposed list of revisions. You're just going to work on giving us a proposed list of revisions, and then we can say yes or no on those revisions. Is that correct? And that can be a good opportunity for discussions on things we like or don't like.
Yeah, I mean, an unsuccessful vote tonight would mean that there would be nothing for you to consider in the future. And I know you're talking about one specific bill tonight, but
Right, that
as the city attorney's office, we would enjoy the opportunity to present you with some options because we were caught very flat-footed and we were misrepresented in the state legislature by our neighbors in the community, but we couldn't respond because of the current policy. So we'd like to make some suggestions that would allow us to respond to the city in those type of situations. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I think we have some good suggestions for you that balance, I think, which the prior administration was trying to do on making sure both sides of an issue were heard, and being able to act nimbly when things come through that are easy or things where we're being misrepresented in front of the state legislature. And again, if you don't like those proposals, you just vote no when it comes up again.
And I think that this is just the starting point, and we'll have more time for discussion to actually like hammer things out potentially in one-on-ones, maybe bring your like thoughts up to the city manager. Also, I wanted to say, I understand state and federal legislation is much bigger than us, and we don't have, and I don't think our staff necessarily has like the background to make recommendations for that. But I think we're talking about policy that directly affects Durango. And there has been a few items where Durango has specifically been asked to come forward with a statement in support or not support. When that housing bill was going to potentially get passed, that would have directly changed our land use and development codes to something that we and most mountain towns were against, because we've done so much work to preserve our spirit and character. And so it was an opportunity for us to stand up for our community in a much bigger way. A lot of times state legislation trickles down to us and we have no say over things that will directly affect us because we can't nimbly respond. And so, yes, this one issue might not be able to be addressed right now, but then in the future, we would be able to address things that we support as a business community or as housing or whatever the big childcare, whatever the big issues are. And I think that's the biggest thing, that one, we do have another opportunity to discuss, because I don't think we can do it in a study session. It has to be in an open meeting if we pass this into, yeah. Okay.
That's correct. If there's any official direction that is going to be given to the staff, it has to go through a regular meeting. That can't be at study session. So, yes, from a staff perspective, the resolution was vague. It was vague intentionally because as staff, we're looking for direction, and that's why we have it on here. We don't want to assume that these are the things that we are already there. I think that there's some issues that we face as staff. I think I've heard in this discussion, one of the issues about the oppose and support, really tough to do. When we come to staff, we normally just give you a recommendation and go. Having that placed on staff to go find an opposite viewpoint can be difficult, because it could also be perceived, did we really work as hard to find the opposite viewpoint? Did we not? Those types of things get a little bit complicated, but I do think it was good discussion today, and just leave it at that.
Excellent. Can I have a vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie? No. Counselor Woodruff?
Yes.
Mayor Buell?
Yes.
Counselor Bosman's?
No.
So motion fails. All right, next item, first consideration of ordinances, no items. Item 13, public comment on city matters not scheduled for a vote tonight. Can I have the reading of the rules?
Public comment is encouraged on city-related matters, even if they are not set for a vote by the council on tonight's agenda. Please begin your comments by stating your city-related topic, your full name, and if you are a resident of the city of Durango. Make your comments directly to the council. Do not expect a response from the council or staff. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person unless modified by council. Unused time is not transferable to other speakers. Comments must be specific to city matters. Profanity, hate speech, personally derogatory remarks, or other speech that is disruptive to the meeting will be ruled out of order by the chair, and any remaining time will be forfeited by the speaker. Exceeding the time limit infringes on the rights of others and is out of order. Only a majority vote of the council can modify time limits. Please note, you must sign up prior to the mayor calling the item on the agenda. Signing up after the item is called will result in your name not being called to speak.
Right.
So we do have one person signed up. They are asking to speak on item 14.1, which is actually next on the agenda. If you would like to
Yeah, I
entertain
think that's
that
fine.
comment.
It's not.
Would
yeah,
be
it's-
James J.D. Sutton, if that's.
I just take it under 14.1. We'll just do it under this since it's right before it and it's only one. Okay, excellent. Just keep it easy. Go ahead. Yeah, come on up right here. Yeah, and just turn on the microphone. Oh, it's on. Never mind. Just kidding.
Thank you, City Council, for allowing me to come up and talk. Just want to take this opportunity to introduce myself, James Sutton. My wife is Ashley Sutton, and we purchased 1521 Main Avenue, which was the Woodhouse previously. I think there's been a little bit of drama and rumors out there, and just want to say where we come from. We've been Durango residents for 4 years. My wife's 6th generation Colorado born. Her great grandparents actually lived here in the 50s, 60s. And we lived in Golden before that. We came down here when she helped out Mercy Hospital during COVID because she's an ICU nurse. We luckily had gotten some rentals over the year, and she started a med spa on her own, and we basically put it all in. And when we saw the building, it's a beautiful building. The Terhunes are great people that own that building, and the tenant had a 12-month lease, which we thought, this is great. We don't want to take over a spa. And long story short, 2 days prior to the closing, Heidi Balcom, who was the owner of the franchise Woodhouse, not the building, sent a termination letter email to the Terhunes and essentially terminated the lease 2 days prior to our closing. So my wife and I quickly had to discuss what we wanted to do. We proceeded as, really one party can't unilaterally terminate a lease. We reached out to her and asked, hey, do you want to talk? We want you to stay. How can we resolve this? And she basically, as she said to the Terhunes, unless you give me a month-to-month lease and let me go of all harm, liability, which doesn't really apply to us, I will vacate. And we said, well, we purchased the lease. We don't have the ability to change the lease. We're legally abided to the lease, but we want you to stay for 12 months. But if you want to vacate, that's your prerogative. She then vacated that weekend. She fired 30 employees, and we hustled to become spa managers. We got as many employees back as we could. And on top of that, we then reached out to Woodhouse Corporate, asking them, because in the Woodhouse franchise that she had, the landlords had the requirement to inform corporate if there was any default, abandonment, or anything. So we did do that. And then they had an opportunity to remedy the situation, as she did not remedy, because she's also in default of the 4 days in August that she owed us rent. So per the current lease, which even states that this lease is only active while she has a Woodhouse. Woodhouse Corporate has stated she abandoned, and per their franchise agreement, she no longer has a Woodhouse. When we purchased the building, we assumed that with Terry D's and Signature and Woodhouse, that liquor license always just stayed with the building. When we went to go to the city to ask for this transfer, they stated how there's this miscommunication or misunderstanding of, she's abandoned the lease, but she's not signing anything. She's not replying to anything. So basically, we're just asking that, the city supports us and supports the liquor license going as it has with every other business over the last 20 years to our business, despite this unfortunate tenant abandoning things.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other set up for public comment?
No, Mayor, that was the only one.
Okay. Moving along to item number 14, other new business, 14.1, status hearing for lodging and entertainment liquor license for Bella Vita LLC, DBA The Woodhouse Day Spa, submitted by the city attorney's office, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, that's going to make things, the public comment's going to make things a little confusing, but you're only here tonight to hear from any representative from Bella Vita LLC about the status of their liquor license. So is anyone here from Bella Vita LLC? Okay, so the purpose of this was determine if someone's going to come tell us their side of that story and how it relates to the liquor license. The information that the city has, this person has in fact abandoned the business, abandoned the liquor license, but we have to officially close out that license so we can do anything else. So what will happen now, since there's been no appearance here, is that we will actually move at next month's meeting to revoke that license or suspend that license, which will then free up a license to be issued to the gentleman who just spoke. So this is a procedural matter that we had to do tonight. So in 2 weeks, we can actually move forward with a motion to suspend the license of the person that holds it. And that point, the location frees up and these people can get a liquor license if they choose to.
And just for clarification for everyone, this is because we don't have a liquor license authority.
You are. the
And
liquor
we
license.
are, like, it
right.
wasn't, it got changed with the boards and commissions. We are now the liquor license authority.
Correct.
Correct,
Correct.
okay. Do you need anything from us?
Nope, we just needed to call to see if anyone appeared for the status hearing, and since they haven't, we now have the cause to set this for a revocation hearing at next week, 2 weeks from now's meeting.
Great.
Not 2 weeks, whenever the next meeting is, November. When's our next meeting? November?
November 5th.
Yeah, so November 5th, there'll be something on your agenda to suspend or revoke that license.
Out of curiosity, because this is also new to me, this process, does a notice go out to the entity that we're looking to?
Yeah.
And so they are aware, they're informed, it's all.
Yep, we did our job and sent, I think it was a 10-day notice to appear for the status hearing.
Yeah, the 10-day permit has been posted on that building for more than 10 days now.
Yeah, and we will do the same thing for the hearing next week. And if they show up and try to talk or convince us not to revoke the license, they have the right to do that. So there is probable cause anytime we suspend that license. Not
And they
probable
have
cause,
closed-
I'm sorry,
they-
due process.
I'm sorry, Mark. They have closed their business license as well, which is required to maintain a liquor license.
Very educational. Thank you.
So can somebody apply for a new liquor license while one is suspended at the same location, or does that have to be revoked before that can be processed?
That's why we're going through this, because we would like very much to have people get their license if they choose to do it at a certain location. But before we can do that, we have to get the other one closed out.
So
And I'm mixing my words with suspended and revoked, but there cannot be an active liquor license in someone's name at a location, then a second person come in and try and take over that license.
So revocation needs to take place.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And the good news is when the new applicants come in, we don't have to do a hearing. That we can just
can
do it
just do it.
administratively.
Perfect. Any other new business from any counselors? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye, great. Adjourned.